Atlanta was the best next-gen race so far. Freddie, spot on, spot off.
Again, probably spot off. I think it was a great race, but it's a plate race. It's the best plate race we've had so far by far, I think. But I enjoy more of seeing the guys kind of on edge at mile and a half. So I think Charlotte was a great race a couple years ago or last year.
Last year was a good one.
I think there's been races where you can look and see that the guys are driving the shit out of the car, and you're like, wow, that was impressive. It might not be a 3,000th of a second finish, but what they did and competing like that with each other is, I'd have to go back and look and see one to come to mind. But I think, again, I think the race was so good yesterday that it was just, because of we're packed up, plate package or speedway package, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I don't know that it was the best next gen race ever.
TJ.
I don't think it was I don't know if I could ever give a plate race the best next gen race, because there's just too many circumstances that lead up to the finish to that and how somebody wins the race. And the drivers aren't, I can't literally sit there and say that some guy just got up on the wheel of that race and outdrove everybody that way. I can't say that. So, great race, great finish, but I don't think I don't think it's the best next gen race.
I mean, it's perspective. It's not that we don't like it. It's not that we don't appreciate it.
I loved it. Yeah.
And I don't want fans to take it the wrong way. Is it the best speedway? Best super speedway? It's the best super speedway race with this generation of car.
By far.
Hands down. But it's not my favorite race in this generation of car. Just not. I mean, give me a slick Charlotte, or give me somewhere that the tires wear off at Darlington. It's as a racer, and obviously I'm a fan too a lot of these weekends, but as a racer, there's a lot more that goes into it than what it takes to win that race.
Spot on, spot off. Daniel Suarez saved to see that Trackhouse with this Atlanta win. Brett.
Oh, man, there's a lot of talk about this. I had Daniel Suarez on my list, and I'll give you guys a list so there's no confusion. Here's drivers I had on the hot seat. Austin Cindric. Austin Dillon.
Austin Cindric third in points, by the way.
I know.
So
this is preseason. This is my list preseason. Drivers on the hot seat. Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon, all of Stewart Haas Racing. If Buescher wins multiple races, Brad Keselowski. Brad's obviously the owner. Daniel Suarez. That's all the bigger name drivers that I had on the hot seat list. Daniel Suarez goes out and wins the second race of the year, locks himself into the playoff, locks himself into the All-Star race. It's going to get a lot of hype.
He didn't lock himself into the playoffs yet. But
unless something really stupid happens, he's locked himself into the playoffs. He's under a lot of pressure because Ross Chastain has won 4 races in the amount of time that going into yesterday. Daniel had won 1. Ross tends to be up front a lot. Daniel does not. SVG comes in and wins in his first ever road race in the same equipment. They've won 7 races as an organization in the last 3 years. I don't know with Zane, because I look at this thing and I go, well, what do you do with Suarez if he's under contract with Trackhouse, but he doesn't have a seat in the 99? Well, you'd swap seats with him and Zane Smith, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you could.
Could.
Obviously, SVG's under contract. So charter-wise, Trackhouse has way more drivers than they have charters. So that tells me somebody's screwed. It's either somebody that, like a Zane Smith or SVG, or it's Suarez. I think right now Suarez needs to go win one more race to be 100% locked in. He's got to go be competitive at all these other places to stay, for me to say he's solidified in the car that he's in. Now, Matt Swinderski is his crew chief. Matt and him just got hooked up. Matt came from RCR. He went to Colleague Racing. A lot of people know this about Matt. He also worked for Elon Musk. He built rockets. This guy is smart. I worked with Matt. We actually won the race together with AJ Allmendinger at the Indianapolis Road Course a few years ago with Colleague Racing. I think he's going to be a huge asset to that organization. I think he was the smartest guy at Colleague Racing. I don't mean anything by that. I don't mean to discount, Lenny and Alex and Bruce Slicker and everybody else that's over there, but I thought he was the smartest guy at Colleague Racing, and he left to go to Trackhouse. I think that's going to benefit Daniel Suarez a ton, but Daniel's going to have to show up for me to say he's solidified in this particular car for a long time and win more races. But here's the thing we don't know. How much money does Daniel still have behind him? When he came into the sport with Joe Gibbs Racing, He came in with a company called Eris, which was backed by Carlos Slim. It was over $20 million. They sponsored Carl Edwards in Cup. They sponsored somebody in Xfinity. I believe it was Suarez.
Yeah.
And then they sponsored Suarez in trucks. They wrote a big check. How much money has he still got with him? Because it still takes money to race too.
So you're spot off. You don't agree that this is.
I don't think, not in this particular car. I'm not saying he won't stay a Trackhouse driver. I'm not saying he won't stay a part of the family. But I don't think he stays in this car unless he can prove himself to be competitive and run up front, top 10s every week or a lot of weeks, and be a contender.
I agree from what we just talked about. You know, this was not a – I don't want to take anything away because I thought he did a good job. I don't think he had the fastest car. I think he was one of the most aggressive guys at the end, and that's what got him the win. But it's still circumstantial. Like he's one Bubba Wallace push away from, you know, not winning that race. So, you know, third place ain't saving his job. So it's just, you know, I think a lot of it depends on the success of SVG, the success of Zane Smith this year. You know, if Zane goes out, Zane hasn't had a great start to his year. You know, obviously we'll see. We're going to get a better idea, like TJ said earlier, of what everybody really has when we go to the races, you know, in the coming weeks. But, you know, if them guys kind of, you know, have a mediocre season in Xfinity or Zane Cup, you know, there's no point in you're not going to take one of them to replace Daniel, especially after coming off the playoff season. But I agree with Brett. This doesn't. I don't know that this does a lot. You know, it doesn't lock him in by any means to that 99 car in the future.
Yeah, I don't think this. To me, this doesn't really change a whole lot yet. If he would have won the Daytona 500, I'd say that probably helped. That's
crazy.
Yeah. So, to me, Todd Gilliland had a more impressive day. Than what the win at the end there. I think Todd. What his day was, running up there with the front guys, slicing and dicing there a bit, leading a lot of laps. That was more impressive to me than, you know, a 3-wide finish, no matter which one of them guys win. Nothing against him, great race to the end, but like what, you know, for Todd, if you would have told me that Todd was going to lead that many laps at the beginning of the race, I'd have been like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. So I don't think anybody would have thought he'd lead that many.
You know, last year, I think Todd got a little chip on his shoulder last year when they took him out of that 38 car for whatever Zane's races were going to be, because I felt like you've seen his performance step up, especially the second half of last year, to where front row basically had no choice but to put him back in that 38 car.
Yeah, he was running good.
You know, and now you see the speed. Obviously, we're going to see what the Fords have at 1.5 miles now. That was kind of, I think, their struggle point a little bit last year. And, you know, we'll see what they have going forward now. But to start the year off, I thought Todd did a great job in the Daytona 500. He was up there in contention all day long. He was up there yesterday all day long. I seen he tweeted out he felt like he made one mistake yesterday that cost him a good finish. I'm sure I think he got caught up in one of the wrecks late, right? But yeah, like I said, like I think last year, I think when they took him out of that car for whatever it was, 6 or 8 races, and he got sent over to Rick Ware, I think it was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to show you guys. And at the end of the year, he left them no choice but to put him back in there full time.
And you can't really look at points right now.
I read Justin Marks' comments when he said Daniel Suarez is going to be here. Those are sometimes some of the worst words you can ever hear.
You know,
I can't tell you how many times I've heard, "Oh, Freddie's our guy. Freddie's going to be coming back here next year."
Yeah.
And then nobody calls Freddie to tell him he's fired.
So you know, you say
early for that.
Say you can't look at points yet, TJ. But I was watching some show. I think it was truck pre-race maybe or qualifying. Trevor Bayne made a point of like I think after race 2 or 3, only 2 guys that were outside of the top 16 in points made the playoffs. So like maybe it might have been race 3 or 4, but like it was early in the year that only 2 or 3 guys bumped in from that were out of the playoffs. So there's a lot of guys that are buried right now that are going to have to work their way out.
Yeah, but you got to look. We've had 2 races, and both of them had huge wrecks that took out a lot of cars.
Here's who's way out: Tyler Reddick, 26th in points; Joey Logano, 33rd in points; Austin Dillon, 35th in points; and Keselowski, 36th in points.
Yeah,
big names, a lot of funding.
So you look at it, they're not going to. I mean, they have to go on a hell of a run here to be in the top 16 in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So if that stat holds true, where you know the people that are in the top 16 after 5 races kind of stay the top 16 and without a couple exceptions, that's a hole to dig out of.